I'm Angela Morabito with Campus Reform, and today Congressman Jim Jordan is joining me to answer 5 big questions about campus free speech. Congressman Jordan is the co-chair of the Campus Free Speech Caucus, which was founded to champion the cause of First Amendment rights in higher education. Congressman Jordan, thanks for coming on the show.
Good to be with you today.
So when you talk about this brand new caucus and all the censorship that's going on college campuses these days, you might feel a little bit spoiled for choice in terms of issues you want to tackle. Where do you go first? What's first on the docket?
Well, I think that the key is, and the whole focus of this is to draw attention to what's happening on campus, what's happening to students' First Amendment liberties, what's happening to their free speech rights. Angela, I always remind people that think about over the past year, just in general, every single right we enjoy under the First Amendment has been assaulted. Every single one. Your right to practice your faith, your right to assemble, your right to petition your government, freedom of press, freedom of speech. Everyone's been attacked. And the most important of those 5 liberties we have under the First Amendment is your right to speak. Because frankly, if you can't speak, you really can't practice your faith. You really can't assemble. You really can't petition your government. None of your other rights mean anything. And so that's why we're focused on this. And I'm pleased to have be helping Kat Kamick, one of my colleagues, lead this caucus and focus in on this issue, which is so important.
When you and Congresswoman Kamick announced this caucus, you mentioned how there's this insidious culture of self-censorship that's going on campus. And that's interesting to me because it's not necessarily a hostile policy, although there are plenty of those to go around. It's a hostile culture that is convincing students and faculty members alike that they need to stay silent or else it's their career or their academic future that's on the line. That's such an internal fight. So where do we start in terms of righting the ship?
Again, I think you draw attention to it. We've seen countless examples. I remember the Professor Weinstein who was attacked on campus. I remember all the things that have happened to Ben Shapiro. So you draw attention to it, and I think that will help give more students the courage to speak out and not be afraid of this idea that if you speak out, they're going to come after you next. You will be canceled next. But it is more, it's not just a threat. It actually happens. I mean, we now know that on college campuses, they have these bias response teams, which is a fancy name for like a bunch of tattletales who run around campus. And if you say something that isn't consistent with the woke mob, if you say something that's not politically correct, you're going to be harassed. You're going to be targeted. You may, in fact, have to do like some training, some sensitivity training, or you may have some mark put on your official record. So there is that overt attacks on your liberty that happens, not to mention what you said, which I think is so important. There's also this threat that, oh, if that could happen to me, maybe I'll just be quiet. Maybe I won't speak up. And that is contrary to what campus life is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be get your best hold, make your best argument. Let's have a robust debate. Let's embrace the First Amendment, and let's argue and have ideas out there. But unfortunately, that is not what is happening on our campuses today, and it needs to stop.
That free marketplace of ideas you describe is not a reality in far too many places. And you mentioned those bias response teams. Well, campus reform has seen time and again where they turn into bias enforcement teams.
Yep.
They're sent to enforce a particular agenda. All of this conversation about free speech, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. We're also up against these academic standards at colleges and universities throughout the country that have been on this perpetual downward slope. How do you see free speech playing into that?
Well, look, if you can't have an honest debate, if you can't have a robust argument and really embrace different ideas and have that full debate on campus, then I think we fundamentally undermine what our great country is all about. So that is why we're so concerned about this. And it used to be, it wasn't that long ago where you knew you could have a full debate on college campus. It was embrace, speak your mind, get your best hold, make your best argument. That's not the case. So I come back to this idea that every single liberty we enjoy has been attacked. I told a group the other day that 6 weeks ago I spoke to the New Mexico Republican Party in Amarillo, Texas, because the New Mexico Republicans had to go to Texas to get freedom. They had to go to Texas to assemble as a group because they weren't allowed to. So just one example of just how serious the threat to our First Amendment rights really is. And again, no place worse than on college campuses where they have these safe spaces, where they have these free speech zones. I remember we had a hearing a few years ago, Angela, where we had a professor, and I asked him, I said, Professor, on a college campus, can a free speech zone and a safe place be at the same location? And there were some chuckles and some laughter in the room, but it's kind of true. Like, it's supposed to be, a free speech zone is supposed to be everywhere. It's called the First Amendment. But unfortunately today we don't have that. So again, this is why we formed the caucus, to draw attention to what's going on in campuses and to do everything we can to expose it and then hopefully stop it.
Maybe that's how we change some minds on campus, right? If we just start calling the free speech zones safe spaces with the First Amendment. I wonder how that would work. Anyhow, I want to call your attention to this survey. It just came out from North Dakota State University. It's got some pretty devastating results about political opinions on campus. 57% of liberal students said that they were not proud to be American, and 81% of those same liberal students said that college had influenced their political beliefs. So that sets up a pretty clear line between what's going on in college and the end result of people having really negative feelings toward this country. Do you believe that your caucus and the work that it does is going to help get this solved?
Well, I do think it will help, but that is alarming. I mean, that is today's left, though. Today's left doesn't like the country. Today's left embraced this critical race theory, which basically says America is that it's a Marxist ideology, which says America is bad. I fundamentally disagree with that. I think America is the greatest country ever, built on certain principles, certain ideals, like the idea that we have a First Amendment and everyone's allowed to speak and voice their opinion. So that's a result, I think, of what's being taught on campuses. And that's why you're seeing this strong pushback from so many families across the country against this critical race theory and against this Marxist ideology, which says America is bad. We know America is great, not perfect, but the greatest country ever, done more good for more people around this planet than any other nation in history. We all understand that, but today's left doesn't believe that. They don't like that, and they're trying to teach that to so many people, and that's why it's so threatening and so wrong. And again, why it's so needed for us to push back on all this leftist ideology.
And this leftist ideology, this dogma, this set of beliefs that you're not allowed to challenge on a college campus, we know it's very prevalent in college, but it's certainly not just confined to campus, right? It's starting to show up in woke capital and corporations and big tech, where they're just absolutely intolerant of anything that doesn't toe their preferred party line. So if you were Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg or any of those people who's in charge of a major company, do you think that they should be taking similar action to what you're recommending for colleges to open up free speech within their ranks?
Well, yeah, we want it everywhere. You're right. The left and this idea that attack on free speech, it's now all over the place. I mean, think of big sports. I mean, we see this all the time in sports. Sports has now become political. I said the other day that, think about the left controls everything. The left controls big media. The left controls big tech. The left controls big corporations. The left now controls big sports. The left controls Hollywood. The left controls higher education. The left controls the White House. The left controls the Congress. The left controls the bureaucracy. But in spite of that, I think those of us who actually embrace the First Amendment and the Constitution, we're still making, I think, real progress, and we're showing how crazy the left is. So we just got to keep it up. But you're exactly right. Everyone needs to understand how serious this threat is and how the left dominates so much of our culture. But in spite of that, we've almost won back the House. I think we're going to win it back in 18 months. I think President Trump's going to run for office and win that back in 2024. So I look at the positive here. But it's a tough fight we're in, and we need to understand that, but we got to be willing to push back.
Well, Congressman Jordan, thank you so much for fighting this fight and for joining me and answering 5 big questions. Can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Angela. Take care.